Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Param Bhuyaha Prabhakshami Jnanam Jnanamutamam Yajgatva Munayaha Sarve Param Sedemito Gataha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection.
Gitam Jnanamupashritya Mama Sadharmayam Agataha Sargapino Pajayante Pralayena Vatanti Cha.
By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
Mama Yoner Mahad Brahma Tasmin Garbam Didamyaham Sambhavaha Sarvabhutanam Tato Bhavati Bharata.
The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata.
Sarvayonishu Konteya Murtaya Sambhavanti Yaha Tasam Brahma Mahadyoner Aham Bija Pradaha Pita.
It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father.
Sattvam Rajastama Iti Gunaha Prakriti Sambhavaha Nibatnati Mahabaho Dehedehinam Avyayam.
Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashamanam Mayam Sukha Sangena Badnati Jnana Sangena Chakaha.
O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
Rajoratgatmakam Vedi Krishna Sangha Samudbhavan Tadnipnati Konteya Karma Sangena Dehinam.
The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions.
Tamastva Agyana Jam Vedi Mohanam Sarvadehinam Pramadalasya Nidrabis Tannibadnati Bharata.
O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul.
Sattvam Suke Sanjayati Rajaha Karmani Bharata Jnanam Avratya tu Tamaha Pramade Sanjayati Yuta.
O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness.
Rajastamascha Vibhuya Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Sattvam Tamaschaiva Tamaha Sattvam Rajastata.
Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharata. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
Sarvadarveshu Dehasmin Prakasha Upajayate Jnanam Yada Tada Vidyad Vivridam Sattvamiti Yuta.
The manifestations of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge.
Lobaha pravritirarambha karma nama shamaha svira rajasi etani jayante vivride bharatarshava.
O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop.
Aprakasho pravritischa ramado moha evacha tamasi etani jayante vivride kurunandana.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested.
Yada sattve pravridetu pralayam yeti dehabrit tadodatma vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate.
When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages.
Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinastamasi muda yonishu jayate.
When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities, and when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom.
Karmanaha sukritasya huhu Satvikam nirmalam palam rajasastu phalam dukam agyanam tamasaha phalam.
The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness.
Sattva sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha eva cha pramada moho tamaso bhavato jnanam eva cha.
From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion.
Urdvam gachanti sattvasta madhya tishtanti rajasaha jaganya guna vritista ado gachanti tamasaha.
Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds.
Nanyam gunebhyaha kartaram yada drashtanupashyati gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam sodigachati.
When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work, then these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature.
Gunanetanya tityachin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara duker vimitto mrittamashnute.
When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life.
Arjuna vacha Karalingeshtun gunanetan atito bhavati prabhu kimacharha katam chetam stringunan ati vartate.
Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature?
Sri Bhagavan vacha prakasham cha pravritim cha mohameva cha pandava nadveshti sampavrittani navirtani kankshiti udasina vadasino guneryo na vichalyate gunavartanta iti evam yovatishtati nengate samaduka sukha svasta samalo Samalostashmakanchanaha Tulya Priya Priyodiras Tulya Nindatma Sanstutihi Manapa Manayostulyas Tulyo Mitrari Pakashayaho Sarvaramba Parityagi Gunatitaha Sa Uchite.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities, such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature.
Mantrayo Vyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevite Sangunan Samatityetan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha.
And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the three modes of material nature. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, for stepping in, and Hare Krishna. Thank you, Yash, for your very expert recitation. So, Sridham, I'm not sure if you come back. If you did, apologies, but we had to start without you. Let me know if you are here, and I can let you read today's verse and purport. Okay, so we'll move on to today's verse. So we'll start off by reciting the Mangala Charanam prayers, and you can join me behind muted mics also. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivashari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So welcome, dear devotees, and thank you for those who attended today's Sankirtan festival. I know many of our regulars like Emma Mataji and Bhagavati Mataji and Palika Mataji spoke very, very nicely in today's festivals, and others also. So that was very, very nice. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll be facilitating Saturday and Sunday for the next 3 weeks, because of some personal commitments I got during the week. So today we'll be reading text number 21 in more detail. Arjuna uvacha kailingashtin gunanetan atito bhavati prabho kimachara katam chaitam tringunan ativartate. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna said, Kai, by which, lingai, symptoms, trin, three, gunan, qualities, etan, all these, atitaha, having transcended, bhavati is, prabho, O my Lord, kim, what, acharaha, behavior, katam, how, cha, also, etan, these, trin, three, gunan, qualities, ativartate, transcends. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated transcendently, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. So verse again, Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? So this questions that Arjuna asks, he actually asked three questions. It's very, in one sense, it's similar to the question he has asked in the 54th verse of the second chapter about the qualities and activities of a sthita prajna, one who is transcendental. But at that time, he didn't ask how one can transcend the material modes. And in this verse, he's actually inquiring about that. And just for our recollection, in text number 54 of the second chapter, Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk? Before I go to that verse, so these are the three questions that Arjuna asks. By which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? Second, what is his behavior? And third, how does he transcend the modes of nature? So before we discuss it any further, I'd just like to pose a question to all of y'all. Can some of y'all give me, in your own thoughts and words, why this question is so relevant to oneself and one's own spiritual journey? Why is it considered to be so important, so relevant? Would anyone like to give some reasons?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Rupa Mataji.
I think Prabhupada says and Krishna says, I think once you transcend the modes, then your service is actually devotional service. Something like that. I don't know. I'm not 100%, but I think when Krishna says my devotee is very dear to me, he says a devotee who has transcended the modes or something, maybe.
Yeah, that's a nice answer. Actually, when we come to the stage of transcending the modes, there's a special color, there's a special flavor of our service, which becomes very attractive to Krishna. While we're in the modes, still under the modes, it lacks a certain flavor, it lacks a certain taste, it lacks a certain appeal. But when we transcend those modes, there's a certain flavor and attractiveness to our service to Krishna. So that's a very nice answer, Rupa Mataji. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else likes to give some reasons?
Prabhuji,
Yes, Mataji.
yes, we are bound by these modes in this material world, and only way out of this is to get out of this by the gunas or the ropes that tie us, and then only we'll be able to be on our path to back to Krishna where he wants us. So that's why it's important for everybody that we have to transcend these modes in order to be on our way to Krishna. It's like he wants us back.
Nice question, Mataji. And that really pertains to the third question. How does one transcend the modes of nature? So very nice. That is a question. So I think some of you may be shy. You may be writing on the chat box. So let me see if anyone's writing.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
So yes, Mataji, I'll just come back to you 1 minute. Anna writes, so we know who to associate with in order to make progress. Very good, Anna. Very, very good. If we want to come out to the modes of nature, if we associate with those that are already conditioned, then our progress is going to be very slow and stunted. But we associate with those that have already transcended to the modes. It will certainly benefit us. Very nice answer, Anna Mataji. Santosh Mataji, was it you or Rasalila Mataji wanted to say something? Or Seema?
I wanted to say the same thing, that once we know what are the qualities of that person who has transcended the modes of nature, only then we can progress on the same path and then attain Krishna.
Very good, Seema Mataji. Very good answer. Prabhupada used to say, when the blind lead the blind, they all fall into a ditch. So we want to surrender to a spiritual master, or we want to accept diksha and shiksha from people who will lead us on the path. And if they are already conditioned, how can they lead us? So we need to use our discretion on who we take shelter of to help us on our journey. So it's very important we know the symptoms. Prabhupada used to say, just like when you go to buy gold, you want to buy 21 karat gold. If you do not know what are the characteristics of 21 karat gold, then they may give you some imitation and you get cheated. So in the same way on the spiritual path, we want to surrender. We want to take the association of those who are transcended the modes. So we should know what those symptoms are. Otherwise, we will take shelter in the wrong place. So Chandrika Mataji has written here, we chant attentively, then it will aid us. Yes, Chandrika Mataji. We want to come out of these modes. We also want to know where we are on our spiritual journey. And we want to come to the point of chanting purely. Or it is said, the symptom of one who is on the stage of pure chanting, Sudanam. One symptom is they have transcended the modes of nature. So these are good benchmarks, they're good yardsticks for us to always know. Sometimes we may think, oh, maybe I transcended the modes. But now if we got the characteristics, the symptoms, we can go and look, no, that's not me. I've still got some way to go. So these are some very, very important reasons or why these questions are so important. Has anyone else got any other reason that you can think of? Would you like to share with us? No. Okay.
Would you
So,
say, Hare
yes,
Krishna,
Hare
would
Krishna,
you
Chandra
say
Mata.
also taking association of the Shastras, Srimad Bhagavatam, we can, if we sometimes we don't have always possibility of having physical association or even remotely sometimes. So we've got the book with us, the Gita, or, that can help us.
That's true. We know that Srimad Bhagavatam is the body of the Lord. The first 2 cantos are his feet, 3 and 4 is his thighs, 5 is his navel, 6 and 7 is his arms, 8 is his chest, 9 is his throat, 10 is his smiling face, 11 is his forehead, and 12 is his head. So the Bhagavatam is the body of Lord Krishna. So if we know the Bhagavatam is transcendental, we associate with Srimad Bhagavatam, we can advance. And the same with Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the words of the Lord. So some Shobhana Mataji has written, let's see what she has written. When we are joyful and never lament to have desires, then we have reached there. Yeah, that's nice. So these questions that Arjuna is asking to the Lord, we should be so indebted to Arjuna. With such intelligence, he's phrased these questions so nicely. What symptoms, what behaviors, and how. So these now will be answered in the different verses that are coming up. Actually, text number 22 will answer what are the symptoms. Text number 23 to 25 will describe what is the behavior. And text number 26 will discuss what is the process for transcending. So the next 22 to 26 texts are the answers to this question. But I don't want to preempt the answers, so I will keep today's presentation or facilitation more in line with the focus on the questions itself. Now, I want to share this one verse with y'all from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And many of y'all who listen regularly to Srila Prabhupada's classes will recognize these words. Dharmam tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam. Prabhupada often quotes this verse. And the translation of this verse from the 6th canto, 3rd chapter, text number 19. This verse says, real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles. Nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, Vijyaharas, and Charanas. So, yeah, is a description or a list of all the people within the material world. And some of these categories are in the mode of goodness. But what this verse is saying, no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, can really enunciate the religious principles. So these questions that Arjuna is asking, the most qualified person to answer this question is Krishna. Not even the demigods, not even the leaders of Siddhaloka, which are the higher planets, what to speak of asuras, or ordinary human beings, Vijyaharas and Charanas. So this knowledge that we are getting, a very intimate devotee of Krishna asking the questions. and Krishna himself answering these questions. It is the topmost knowledge. So one should listen to these questions and the response to these questions, the answers, with great attention. Because by understanding or appreciating this, one's path to spiritual perfection becomes wide open. We are very fortunate in the sense that not only are we getting Arjuna's questions in the Gita, not only are we getting Krishna's transcendental answers, but we're also getting the purport, the explanations by a pure devotee who has transcended the three modes. Srila Prabhupada is giving further clarity and explanation. So, we can never ever underestimate our good fortune by receiving this transcendental knowledge. It is extremely, we have been in this material world for countless of lifetimes, going round and round and round and round, birth after birth after birth after birth, always remaining in ignorance. But by hearing these words of the Gita, hearing the answers by Krishna, it is the greatest gift that we can ever receive, the greatest gift. And Prabhupada says, unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendently, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So Prabhupada is saying that unless we know the way, unless we know the answer to the third question, we cannot demonstrate the symptoms and the behaviors in 1 and 2. So in one sense, an understanding of the third question is fundamental. And it really means, in the context of this chapter, how we can transcend the material modes of nature. There is somewhere I read Prabhupada said, even if one is not able to practice, simply if one appreciates this knowledge, even if one is not able to attain it, if one simply appreciates what is being spoken and what answer one is being given, that situates one in a very high spiritual situation. So dear devotees, even if we do not get the Vigyan, Vigyan means realized knowledge, even if we just have the Gyan, that can benefit us so much. So Prabhupada says all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. So Arjuna is the perfect student, and the Lord is the perfect teacher. So when we put the two together, the perfect student and the perfect teacher, Srila Prabhupada writes, the situation becomes very potent. Very potent. And this is Bhagavad Gita. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful verse in the second canto, actually the very first verse of the first chapter of the second canto. The first canto finishes off with Maharaj Parikshit asking the question, similar to what Arjuna asking, what is the duty of one who is about to die? Who should he worship? What should he hear? And what should he speak about? And when he asked these questions, Shukadev Goswami was very, very pleased. And the first verse says, Sri Shuka Uvacha, Variyan Eshate Prashna, Kritolokam Itam Nipra, Atmavit Samata Pumsha, Shrotavyadishu Yat Paraha. Again, those who listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada quotes this verse here so often. Variyan Eshate Prashna. Prabhupada says, Atmavit Samata Pumsha. Shukadev Goswami said, My dear king, your question is glorious because it is beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. So Shukadev Goswami became so pleased when Maharaj Parikshit asked this question. He said, your question is glorious. Why is it so glorious? Because it's very beneficial to all kinds of people. And the answer to this question, it's the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. So similarly, when Arjuna asked this question, he would have pleased Krishna very, very much. The Lord would have been very pleased by his questions. Why? Because when Krishna answers these questions, it becomes beneficial to all kinds of people. And it becomes the prime subject matter for hearing. And Srila Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport, which I'd like to share with you all. Prabhupada says, even the very question is so nice. That is the best subject matter for hearing. Even the question by Arjuna is so nice. Even if we just hear this question and we repeat and repeat and repeat, it is so nice. It is so purifying. Simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person, any question about him is original and perfect. In our very limited life we have, actually we don't even live for 100 years. If we're fortunate, maybe 80 years we'd live. We hear so many questions, so many answers in the newspapers, in books, in our school, on the television. None of these questions can help us to the highest perfectional stage. But the questions that are there in Srimad Bhagavatam, the questions there that are in Bhagavad Gita, they are the most beneficial questions, the most beneficial answers, because as Prabhupada says, this can elevate us to the transcendental position. Therefore, it is the duty of one who has taken human form of life to do this. Therefore, the very first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasa. It starts off now. Now that you have got the human form of life, inquire into the Brahman Jignasa, that which will deliver the greatest benefit to you. Prabhupada says, for instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that simply by understanding the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's appearance, disappearance, and activities, one can immediately return home back to Godhead and never come back to this material existence. I'll conclude with one very nice extract from a conversation on the 22nd of June, 1977 in Vrindavan. That would have been just before Srila Prabhupada left us. Srila Prabhupada left us in November 1977 in Vrindavan. So this Prabhupada is speaking in June 1977. And Prabhupada says, thus the questions that pertain to Krishna are the sum and substance of all the Vedic inquiries. The whole world is full of questions and answers. The birds, the beasts, and men are all busy in the matter of perpetual questions and answers. In the morning, the birds in the nest become busy with questions and answers. And in the evening also the same birds come back, become busy with questions and answers. The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, he is busy with questions and answers. The businessmen in the market are busy with questions and answers. And so also are the lawyers in the court and the students in the colleges and schools. The legislators in the parliament are also busy with questions and answers. And the politicians and the press representatives are all busy with questions and answers. Although they go on making such questions and answers for their whole lives, they are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the subject of Krishna. So these questions and answers that we are listening to, the question we listened to today and the answers we're going to listen to subsequent sessions, these will be very satisfying to our soul, to the soul. And nothing else, no other questions and answers really satisfy the soul. So I'll stop here. I'll take any reflections or questions or comments that any of y'all may have.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Rupa Mataji.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class. My God, this was so brilliant. You know, the questions with the questions. Yeah, when I read the verse today, I was thinking, okay, these are the questions. So how will the class go today? Will the answers come up or will the questions be discussed? But you did so brilliantly, and the last slide was absolutely icing on the cake. The last slide what Prabhupada said. Oh my God, it's so brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Rupa Mataji. When we facilitate, sometimes we under caution not to jump to the answers. The temptation is so much there to go to the answers. So yes,
Yeah, I was
by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we can even, there's so much of, we can talk just about the question and we can relish so much just about the question itself.
That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I was just thinking, how is today's class going to work out? I mean, will the answers come up? What will happen? So it was, yeah, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Rupa Mataji. Hare
Hare
Krishna. Anyone else has any reflections or comments? Okay. It was a long day for many of us, but very enlivening. I sat throughout the Sankirtan festival. It was so enlivening, just so enlivening to listen. And thank you again to every devotee who's participated. The chat members are done so brilliantly in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. And, one thing I've learned is when we please Krishna, when Krishna is pleased, when the spiritual master is pleased, automatically the answers are revealed to us. That is the spiritual secret that Srila Prabhupada imparted to us. So by extending ourselves to want to spread this knowledge and give this knowledge, Krishna becomes pleased. And he reveals both the importance and the juice in the questions and also the answers. So thank you so much to every one of y'all. And may we all continue to serve Srila Prabhupada in his mission. And this will be the perfection of our lives. We were reading yesterday in the Nectar of Instruction how Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness. In the same ways, Krishna is like, Krishna is the sun of knowledge and the modes are like darkness. When Krishna comes out, there can be no darkness. So when Krishna reveals himself and the knowledge, then we will automatically transcend the material modes. The modes won't trouble us anymore. So there's a question here. Hare Krishna Prabhu, how do we please the spiritual master? There's two ways of pleasing the spiritual master. There's something called Vani, his instructions. And there's another term, Vapu, his form. So the disciple serves both while the spiritual master is physically present. The disciple serves the spiritual master's physical form in whatever way that's possible. And he also serves the Vani and the Vapu at the same time. But when the spiritual master is not physically present, then the disciple, Srila Prabhupada said, the disciple makes the instructions of the spiritual master is life and soul. So the spiritual master, the disciple studies what are the instructions of the spiritual master. In one sense, the instructions of the spiritual master are identical to the instructions of the Lord and the previous acharyas. But the spiritual master may just give a bit more detail. So service to the spiritual master essentially means serving the physical form and serving the instructions. One interesting aspect I was reading recently, Srila Prabhupada also says that the spiritual master is not necessarily a person. The spiritual master is a principle. So we may have many spiritual masters, Shiksha Gurus and Diksha Gurus. So we serve all of them. We serve all of them. Hope that answers your question, Mataji. There are many more details, but that's the essence of it. Hope that answers your question. Okay. Thank you. So there's no other questions or reflections or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Sandeep Prabhu.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhuji.
Please accept mine.
I have a question and I can't find answer. You know, in that second, in the chapter where Arjuna is asking Krishna that what are the symptoms of somebody who is in the mode of transcendence, how he sits, how he behaves, all those questions. And Krishna says, one of the things he says is Sukh Dukh Sam, means he's same in all circumstances, whether in joy or in sadness. That person behaves in the same. He has samdarshita. He looks at them in the same way.
Yes.
I can't practice that even for 1 hour. Forget 1 hour, 10 minutes. You know. So I was just trying to how to come to that state of mind where there is samdarshita. You know, towards all the events happening around me.
Yes, that's a very good question, Prabhu. Very good question. One way of seeing it is to look at the cause of the happiness or sadness. And whether it's happiness or sadness, the cause can be the same. As Srila Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, and which we've discussed before, Sandeep Prabhu, there are 3 causes for any experience. Can you remember what the 3 causes we discussed in the past?
One is prarabdha from our past lives. Another is Krishna's will. And third is, I can't remember.
Okay, one is the immediate cause. The immediate cause is the agent. And the agents can be some person or some aspect of material nature. The second cause of our happiness or sadness is our karma. So that is quite an important principle. If it's our karma, it means we are simply getting the results of some bad karma, or we are reaping the good results of some good karma. And one who is on the transcendental path, they are not so much concerned about the good or bad aspects of one's karma. And the third cause is obviously the sanction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was reading one purport today by Srila Prabhupada, where he speaks about the very same thing. He says the devotee is not interested in happiness or sadness, because he sees the happiness or sadness is simply a result of the material condition, one's karma. And the devotee knows that he is transcendental. He's the spirit soul. And the spirit soul is completely aloof from the results of material activity. So when one comes to the transcendental position of understanding that we are the spirit soul, one sees all activities that are taking place in the material world to be simply an interaction. I want to share with you something very nice I shared with somebody today. It's a verse from the Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, 28th chapter, texts 1 and 2, where Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one should neither praise nor criticize the condition, nature, and activities of other persons. Rather, one should see this world as simply the combination of material nature and the enjoying souls, all based on the absolute truth. Whoever indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behaviors of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest by his entanglement in illusionary qualities. So one can extrapolate this very same thing what Prabhupada has written to your question. That if one indulges in the reactions of happiness or sadness, we will very quickly become deviated from our own best interest by the entanglement in illusionary dualities. So one who sees happiness and distress in this world, that they are simply a product of the material world or a combination of that, then one will not be disturbed because one knows in effect we are aloof from this. Why should I become entangled? As Krishna says here, we will be deviated from our own best interest because becoming too happy or too sad, you lose the plot. You lose what is our goal, what is our purpose. Someone is asking for the reference, 11, 28, 1 and 2 Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you get what I'm trying to explain, Sandeep Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, totally. I think identification with the material body or ego results in happiness,
Yes.
sadness, and criticism or being judgmental towards good or bad.
Yes.
And dual Paramatma and Atma existence and understanding, keeping aloof in that sense from the material contamination, keeps one away from all this. I think that's what I'm getting.
Yes, absolutely. Just like in a dream, Prabhu. You are experiencing you became a king, or you're experiencing you lost everything, right? Do you get entangled when you get up in the morning? Oh, I lost everything, or I became a king. You don't, because it's a dream. So in the same way, the material existence, it's simply like a dream for the soul. So just like in a dream, when we wake, we don't get entangled. Why should we get entangled in happiness or distress in the material world?
That is really learning for me tonight. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Answer. Thank you. As always.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Jolly Mataji.
How does that connect with a blissful feeling then? Isn't that part of happiness?
That's on a different, the joy that comes from the Brahma Bhuta stage. That is the real joy because it's the joy of the soul. That's the happiness of the soul. The other so-called happiness, the fluctuating temporary happiness of the material world, that's not the happiness we should become indulged with. But the happiness that one gets from the soul, from bhakti, from relationship with the Lord, that is warranted. That is.
So you're allowed to relish in that.
Yes, yes, definitely. Brahma Bhuta Kalpate,
Yeah.
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma.
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, yes, that is it. We can relish that from the Brahma Bhuta stage.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vishwami Mataji.
You said in the beginning about the flavor that with devotional service,
yes,
flavor the lordships would enjoy.
Yes.
How do we recognize that? And what are the symptoms, or how do we know that he's relishing that?
That actually, according to the acharyas, they come at the stage of bhava bhakti. And those characteristics are described in the 18th chapter of Nectar of Devotion. And I shared that previously on our forum. You can read that. You read the 18th chapter of Nectar of Devotion. You can see. That says, at the stage of bhava, one's heart becomes colored. It becomes colored with the fragrance of bhakti. And that becomes very attractive to Krishna.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. And all glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.